are conservatives hypocrites when it comes to these parental rights and education bills?
Are we
laws?
hypocrites because we don't want the kindergarten teachers to trans the kids? That's the question.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think so. I don't think it's in the free speech tradition of America to preach transgenderism to 5-year-olds. I have a test. It's the What Would Washington Do test. If you talk to the founding fathers, you said, do you believe that you founded this country to protect the sacred right of weirdos to indoctrinate 5-year-olds into transgenderism and other assorted ideologies? I don't think they would have said, yes, by golly, that's why we fought the revolution. What about slavery? I don't think they're teaching a lot about slavery in kindergarten, which is probably a good thing, but... What would the founding fathers... Well,
that's a good question.
That is actually great. That's a very good question. What would the founding fathers say about slavery?
Well, you want to repeat it just because it wasn't in the microphone so folks at home can hear it?
The question was, what would the founding fathers say about slavery? And frankly, the answer is we'd be here all night because a lot of them vigorously opposed slavery. Some of them owned slaves. Some of the ones who owned slaves recognized the moral problem of slavery and wanted to end it, and they set up ways for it to end through the Constitution, and there were vigorous debates. The country almost fell apart. We almost didn't get a Constitution because of that issue. So the answer is it's complicated and would be interesting, but that wasn't the question I was asked. The question on David French saying that conservatives are hypocrites regarding free speech because we don't want kindergartners learning about transgenderism is silly to me because, one, kindergarten classrooms are not exactly a rollicking free marketplace of ideas where we're discovering new scientific technologies and things like that. No, you're learning your ABCs. But furthermore, even on this issue of academic freedom, there is no right of a teacher to teach whatever that teacher wants in a classroom, specifically to kindergartners. It's funny to hear that kind of a question here at the William F. Buckley Jr. program. The conservative movement was founded with a book called God and Man at Yale. Everyone remembers the title. Few people remember the subtitle, which is The Superstitions of Academic Freedom, which he put in scare quotes. He said that academic freedom is a hoax, that it's a superstition that was merely instrumental for the left to get rid of all of the old norms. He quotes the former Yale president, Charles Seymour, who says that skepticism has utility only when it leads to conviction. Later on, Bill Buckley was having a debate with Leo Chern on Firing Line. Buckley said, I do not want a more open society. I want the society to be considerably more closed. He used the phrase epistemological optimism, by which he meant that we can know certain things, we can settle certain things. And Buckley said he felt no desire to protect the rights of a Nazi or of a communist. David French infamously defended Drag Queen Story Hour on the suggestion that if we don't protect the right of drag queens to jiggle around for little kids, then by golly, they might not let us go to church on Sundays. And well, first of all, the left has prevented us from going to church on Sundays for about the past 2 years with the COVID lockdowns. But even beyond that, if we can't tell the difference between twerking for little kids in skimpy outfits at the library and a pastor preaching the gospel on Sunday, then we do not possess the rational faculties and the moral conscience to govern ourselves.
So I've got a different take on the matter. And one of the reasons this podcast can be interesting and fun is that Michael and I have fairly different worldviews. Michael is very Burkean. He is very comfortable with tradition. He is very comfortable with lack of change. I was amazed to see you disagree in any way with Buckley standing athwart, and by the way, athwart's a word used far too rarely in life, athwart history yelling stop. I'm far more libertarian. I am far more live and let live. When it comes to free speech, I embrace free speech, and I embrace free speech not just for people I agree with, but for people I disagree with. I embrace free speech, you mentioned for Nazis and communists. I think Nazis and communists have free speech rights. Now, reasonable people ought to disagree with Nazis and communists. We ought to battle them with more free speech. But I very much agree with John Stuart Mill that the best cure for bad speech is more speech. And so I think academic freedom actually matters, and even academic freedom for people who are nutty. That being said, though, I think the Florida law and the other states that are considering laws is markedly different, which is that if a state is going to have a public school system, it's going to set curriculum. That is inherent in the process of having a school system. And if you're setting curriculum, you're making a choice of what is included in the curriculum and what is excluded in the curriculum. And making that choice is not in and of itself a violation of free speech. You're necessarily sorting what do we think it is imperative that our kids learn. And the Florida bill, you know, it was interesting, the opponents of the bill, they dubbed it the Don't Say Gay bill. And yet the bill provided that for kids that were pre-kindergarten through third grade, that you should not discuss questions of sexuality. Look, pre-kindergarten kids are 3 and 4 years old. And I think it is perfectly reasonable for a state to say, we want kids in pre-K and K to be learning reading and writing and arithmetic, and they shouldn't be talking about sex. And by the way, I don't want straight teachers talking about straight sex to 4-year-olds.
No sex in kindergarten.
Like, you know, kids go to kindergarten to learn to play blocks, to learn to get some basic education. And by the way, the Florida law ended at third grade. At fourth grade, it was, hey, Katie, bar the door, you know, bring out the S&M, let's get explicit. So apparently at age 9, all was good. But prior to age 9, and what's fascinating, I think the cultural left jumped the shark on this. Because you saw many political Democrats, you saw the corporate media all excited, don't say gay. You saw Hollywood all chanting gay, 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 which I got to say is not an act of bravery to chant gay in Hollywood.
It's mandatory, actually, is what it is.
But what's interesting is if you look at the polling of parents, of Floridians who read the terms of this law, which is let's not teach little bitty kids about sex, the overwhelming majority of Floridians agreed with it, including the majority of Democrats in Florida. Yeah. So it's the cultural elites who are like, how dare you silence these brave truth tellers? You can do all the brave truth telling you want outside of the kindergarten classroom.